Madiba came in, found electric fences, soldiers every meter with guns facing our neighboring countries and all that. And South Africa, remember, was not having any relationship with our neighbors. Then Madiba said, look, we are a democracy, there's no more war. We are the last country to get liberated. So why do we have all these things? And they were removed. But the mistake that happened, they were...
Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi of Home Office is spitting fire in this video, giving us really deep history of how the open borders in South Africa have come to become a problem today and tracing its roots back to Nelson Mandela. Let's listen to what he has to say about South Africa's problematic open borders, and I'll be back for some analysis.
If you look, for instance, at the issue of borders, where, look, Madiba came in, found electric fences, soldiers every meter with guns facing our neighboring countries and all that. And South Africa, remember, was not having any relationship with our neighbors. Then Madiba said, look, we are a democracy, there's no more war. We are the last country to get liberated. So why do we have all these things? And they were removed. But the mistake that happened, they were not replaced with anything that is appropriate for democracy. Now, NICOC, the National Intelligence Coordinating Committee, that is the structure that coordinates intelligence services. The crime intelligence from police, military intelligence from the army, civilian intelligence, security intelligence from state security, which may even happen to civilians, to say. And the FIC, the Financial Intelligence Center, there is a body that coordinates them called NICOC. They do what is called intelligence estimate. Let's estimate the security risk of the country. As far back as 2009, they picked up this problem at the borders and say, no, man, there's a problem here at the borders. This porousness and all that. Then they recommended that a special structure whose job is only the borders, because the police and the army have got other jobs, be established. It took 12 years for that act to pass through Parliament because of difference. So I do agree with you that it took time. Yeah. 12 full years, because there were some differences in approach which I don't really have to mention here. Yeah. So only after 12 years, they established the BMA. It has started now. People are now saying, no, it's doing nothing. Where people say we are failing is because somehow people believe once we have got border guards or we've got border management authority, the borders will be sealed in such a way that not even air can pass through. And they get angry when I tell them this, Clement. There's no border anywhere in the world that may not be breached. If that was the case, freedom fighters from all liberation movements in South Africa will not have gone through the fortified borders of the apartheid state. But they used to go there. Some of us participated in making them cross. Even with the army, soldiers, electric fence, people still breach a border. So the Border Management Authority is trying its best, but we are strengthening it.
Yeah, so what do you guys think? I really enjoy this speech so much. He speaks about, real deep history and all of these things I really never knew about. And it highlights the fact that, I suspect the difficulties Nelson Mandela must have been, the really difficult position he must have been at the time in 1994, in trying to prove the fact that he represented both a Pan-Africanist and also, could I use the word, a rainbowist, so in a wider African territory, he had to prove the fact that he was for the openness of Africa, the whole rainbow idea, but on a wider scale, even though it would be much more effective within South Africa. But on the wider spectrum, I'm sure he tried to send a message that we are all one and we are all one people, and in Africa, there's really no need for these borders. There's really no need for this dividing us. And hence the open borders during his time, as Dr. Aaron speaks here. But also at the same time, today we are really seeing the role in which capitalism and productivity, has played in that divide. And so I have a feeling that life is all about competition, okay, there would always be some people who are more productive than others. There would always be some people who see much more value in life and who would want to build much more value in life than others, okay? And the result of that value, the result of that pursuit of excellence and productivity would always create a divide between the haves and the have-nots, those who excel and those who won't excel as much as those. And so the philosophy of capitalism was such that those who continuously seek to increase value and the accumulation of value and what we call capital continuously rise in this triangular, hierarchy of needs and society, in that they will continuously be the ones who, in that pursuit for more value, would create the environment to provide what we would call today employment or sustenance of the others who have been less productive in their efforts. And sometimes this move to productivity as well also has the capacity to institute policies that sort of like continuously reproduce the conditions for the oppression of those who have been less productive than others. We know that that's a fact. Socialism then sought to strive for a form of equality whereby, as a group of really productive people continuously climb up the ladder in value creation, there's a mechanism that constantly tries to spread the value and the capital that's been accumulated around so that the whole system can actually grow together in a unified, equal manner. Okay. But we know that socialism hasn't always been the case, especially in Africa. And so, with open borders in a post-colonial discourse from the 1960s, the era of Africa's independence. So we would see that there would be some nations who would continuously strive to become more valuable in the search for capital, in trying to be productive and really increasing the welfare of its people, while some others would miss out in that or probably carry out wrong policies that would, have negative feedback cycles or loops that then affect their nations negatively. Now, the citizens of those nations would then seek to look around for possible successful nations, so to speak, and try to get into those nations to assume a new identity and try to work their way up again into survival and all that. And so Dr. Aaron here speaks about how the United Nations, I'm going to upload the earlier video, how the United Nations had these clauses that, that ascertained how a citizen fleeing from one of these nations that might have had a negative feedback cycle in the character of war, a secessionist war, famine, or whatever it is, has to, get into another successful country. It ascertained the policies and the ways in which that citizen should be, taken back into a new territory. And this has been the case for South Africa because I see, and from my understanding of South African history, God has really blessed South Africa with successful entrepreneurs, from the inception of I would say, the apartheid era, because I've watched these interviews from these really successful businesses coming from the likes of ShopRite, yes, ShopRite, and some of the big entrepreneurs in South Africa have actually had families traced backwards, not even prior to 1994, okay? And they have had generational wealth transferred to each other and the generational mindset of productivity, of of being committed to excellence and all that. And it has built South Africa into what it is today. What Julius Malema usually described that South Africa is the America of Africa. In other words, it's the home of capitalism, not in a negative light, but in that drive for excellence and value creation and added value creation and the pursuit of comfortable life for the nation, you see. But in shining that beacon as that nation of that exude that much excellence around, amidst nations that seem to be struggling and all that. I think that's really where the challenge of immigration in South Africa lies, because then what options do you have? Do you descend to the low of the nations around you to be able to escape from being the saviorist location for these other guys, or do you constantly strive for excellence where you continuously climb up the value chain while assuming or creating policies that that fight for a way in which you would manage the inevitable influx of foreigners seeking to be a part of the cake that is being built within South Africa. So I think this is the major challenge of immigration in South Africa, and Dr. Aaron really hammers that message really clearly, and how the Home Office in South Africa actually struggled with this, coming from the conventions of the OAU, the United Nations conventions, and all of that. And even though I know I've seen some of your comments here on the corruption that actually goes on in the Home Office today, where the South African passport has been reduced to, as Neil DBS speaks about, rubbish, because the Home Office has been, this is according to the comments I've read on this channel, that the Home Office has been in selling the passport of South Africa to, probably people interested, and it has reduced the value because of the ways in which those people behave with the South African passports abroad. I don't know how true those are, but one thing I know for certain is the fact that there's an adage in Nigeria that says that amidst a society of poor people, one rich man in that society is equally poor if he's unable to lift up the rest, because it's natural that the demands of all of the poor around him would reduce or bring down his wealth and reduce him to their level at every instance. And so the way to build wealth would then be for him to empower all of these people. But this is now in a situation of a nation. How much can South Africa do? South Africa is just a nation of really humble citizens who just want an excellent life, who just want to live a life of peace and excellence, in all they do. But then there are these struggles around the nation that then forces it to always have to decide or fix itself in certain boxes in order to present itself in a certain way. And this really is a struggle. I really feel for the nation, for the people of South Africa, and this battle with illegal immigration. But I really believe that it's important to be positive, to continuously be optimistic that South Africa, as Neil De Beer speaks about, would return to its former glory, where the values of excellence and the values of productivity and the pursuit for a comfortable life for the good of all, black, white, whatever it is, becomes exonerated as a divine principle, even as the influx of probably illegal foreigners would have to encompass a more managed structure to manage that. But I really hope and I really pray that South Africa still maintains its level in terms of the excellence it has established in Africa and in the wider world, and have that continue post 2024. But what do you guys think about this speech by Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi? Share your thoughts in the comments.